All right, let's talk about the silent war being fought inside every piece of modern tech you own. It's a global power struggle over a handful of elements that, honestly, you've probably never even heard of. Welcome to the rare earth race.
So let's just jump right in with a question. Think about your smartphone, right? And then picture a brand new EV, totally silent, just gliding down the road. And then think about one of those giant, majestic wind turbines spinning out on a hill. What's the one thing, the one invisible thread that connects all three?
The answer is kind of shocking. They all run on China's permission. Seriously. Every time you use one of these devices, you're plugging into a global supply chain that has this invisible leash, and the other end of that leash is held thousands of miles away.
So, how on earth did we get here, right? How did one single country get this much control over the absolute building blocks of our modern world? Well, let's get into it. This is section 1, China's rare earth chokehold.
First things first, what are we even talking about? Rare earth elements. It sounds fancy, but it's basically a group of 17 metals. They've got wild names like neodymium and dysprosium. And here's the funny thing, they're not actually all that rare in the ground. The problem is, they're incredibly difficult and messy to mine and process. Their real superpower, though, they create these amazingly powerful super lightweight magnets that make all our high-tech gadgets possible.
So, for decades, China played the long game. They poured money into this industry. And frankly, they were willing to take on the massive environmental headaches that other countries didn't want. The result? They now control somewhere around 85% of the global processing supply. Some people would even say it's closer to 95%. Let's be clear, that isn't just a market lead. That's a chokehold.
For a long, long time, this was just, a fact of economics. It's just how the world worked. But then 2010 happened. And that's when the world found out that economic power can turn into a geopolitical weapon, literally overnight. It was a massive wake-up call. Okay, so picture this. It's the fall of 2010. China and Japan get into this heated dispute over a tiny chain of islands. And in response, China does something nobody saw coming. They just turned off the tap. They completely halted all rare earth exports to Japan. The effect was insane, and it was immediate. You had panic shooting through global markets. Japanese tech giants were staring down the barrel of factory shutdowns, and car makers all the way over in Europe and the US suddenly realized just how fragile their whole operation was. All of a sudden, these obscure metals were on the front page of every newspaper. The lesson couldn't have been clearer. If you control the resources, you can bring the world's most powerful economies to a grinding halt. Rare earths weren't just materials anymore. They were a weapon. And, here's the really uncomfortable truth in all of this. A big reason the West was happy to let China take over this industry is because processing rare earths is a horribly toxic business. It means that our big push for clean energy, all our EVs and wind turbines, has been built on the back of environmental disasters, like the giant toxic lakes near the processing plants in Baotou, China.
So that shock in 2010, plus this growing realization of the true environmental cost, well, it lit a fire under everyone. It kicked off this frantic worldwide race to break free. This is the story of the global counterattack. You can see this rebellion happening right on the front lines in the auto industry. BMW, for example, they fired one of the first big shots. They designed a totally new kind of motor for their iX and i4 electric cars that doesn't use any rare earth magnets at all. It's the super clever design called an electrically excited synchronous motor. Renault was right there with them early on, and now even Tesla has come out and promised that their next generation of motors will be completely rare earth free. And hey, it is not just cars. Get this. A single big wind turbine can have up to 500 kilograms of rare earth magnets inside it. That's a huge vulnerability for the entire green energy sector. And that's exactly why a company like Vestas, the biggest turbine maker in the world, is pouring an absolute fortune into developing new generators that don't need them. But the real game changer isn't just designing around the problem, it's replacing the core material itself. All around the globe, scientists are on this quest for what is basically the holy grail of material science, a magnet that's just as powerful as the rare earth ones, but made from stuff that's cheap and abundant.
And a US startup called Niron Magnetics thinks they found it. They figured out how to combine iron and nitrogen, I mean, come on, two of the most common elements on Earth, to create this incredibly powerful new material called iron nitride. This is so promising that car giants like GM and Stellantis have already jumped in and invested, hoping they can build the first big magnet factory on US soil in decades.
So, while some scientists are busy inventing the future, other people are looking for answers in our past. What if the best new mines aren't actually underground? What if they're sitting in our junk drawers? I mean it, your old smartphone is literally a tiny treasure chest of rare earths. And this idea has kicked off a full-blown recycling revolution. You've got the French chemical giant Solvay building these amazing new facilities designed to pull rare earths right out of old e-waste. And Apple is already way ahead of the curve. They've announced that key parts in their new iPhones, like the little taptic engine that makes the phone vibrate, are now made with 100% recycled rare earths.
So we've got new inventions, we've got recycling, but the last piece of this puzzle is huge. It's building a totally new, completely independent supply chain from the ground up. And that's what we're looking at in Section 4, Forging a New Supply Chain.
Let's just take a look at the major players on this new global map. I mean, the effort is happening everywhere. You've got the mining company LKAB in Sweden, which just found Europe's biggest known deposit of rare earths. Over in Norway, a company called REE Tech is building the continent's very first commercial refinery. From BMW's motors in Germany to Niron's magnets in the US, you can actually start to see the pieces of a new non-Chinese supply chain finally clicking into place.
So, where does all of this leave us? All these different efforts, the new motors, the recycling plants, the new mines, they're all part of this massive global push. It really is a race to independence.
And it's not just one magic bullet, right? It's a three-part strategy, and it's all happening at once. First, you've got the tech revolution, basically trying to invent our way out of the problem. Second is resource independence, finding new mines and building new refineries outside of China. And third, really embracing this idea of a circular economy, where we get way better at recycling the critical stuff we've already used.
And if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. This huge geopolitical chess game isn't just happening in some distant Capitol building. It's happening in the guts of the next electric car you buy. That's the front line. And it's happening inside that old phone you've got sitting in a drawer. That's now a gold mine. Look, the road to total independence is going to be long, and this race is really just getting started. But it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. A world where our technology is completely free from this dependency? Do you actually believe that's possible? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.